let's talk about an open project that you've been working on for the last 10 years of your life, the mystery of the missing Malaysian MH370. This is a complicated case, to say the least. And I know for sure you need multiple seasons and multiple episodes. I really dive down all the details in this.
So cool.
In this case. What I want to do now first is I just want to set the scene. I want to hopefully take an organized approach. Let's see if we stick to it.
Yeah.
I just want to lay out all the pieces first before the flight takes off. So can you paint the picture for me? It's March 8th, 2014. What are all the pieces that we need to know? What is MH370?
Yeah.
What route is it supposed to take? Who are the passengers? Who's in the crew? Who are the pilots? What cargo does it have? What is everything we need to know before the flight takes off?
Sure. So it's a very standard red-eye flight between Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and Beijing, China. And the 239 passengers and crew, it's going to take off around midnight. It will take off towards the northwest on one of the major airstrips that's part of Kuala Lumpur International Airport. And it's good night, clear night, ideal conditions, not a lot of traffic. There's nothing to worry about. It seems like a very normal flight. The pilot is highly experienced, one of the most experienced pilots, captains in the Malaysian Airlines roster. Yeah. The co-pilot is very inexperienced, by the standard of airline operations, but it's not no red flags there either. So it takes off a little bit after midnight. It's basically on schedule. Because there's no traffic, there's a whole departure procedure that is outlined for airline pilots to follow. But because there's no traffic, they get cleared to just forget that, just go straight to a waypoint that's at the edge of Malaysian airspace. And then once you're there, you'll be handed over to the next air traffic control zone at Ho Chi Minh. And then away you'll go. And up to that point, everything just went absolutely normal.
Can you provide a play-by-play of everything that happens from that point, from when the flight disappears all the way till this supposed point of last contact around 8 a.m.? What do we know? What has been reported from the satellite and military radar data? What is the official account?
I mean, that's a good question. This is a plane that disappeared 3 times. And that has never happened before. Planes have disappeared before, but no plane has ever disappeared 3 times. And what do I mean by that? So the plane reaches this final waypoint. It's called Igari, and it's at the edge of Malaysian controlled airspace. It's kind of a bookkeeping formality as to like different, they have meetings and they send letters back and forth and they have conventions and they agree, this controller will control this area, the next controller will control this area. And so it was at the point where, by routine, the pilot flying any flight would say, okay, thank you, good night, Kuala Lumpur. When he says good night, MH370, he's saying good night to the air traffic controller in Kuala Lumpur. And what he's supposed to do is then dial up, change the frequency of his radio, and call the next controller who's in Ho Chi Minh. But there's a 3-minute kind of lag time. I mean, this is human beings take a certain amount of time to do things. They have to give them a certain amount of, it's like a bathroom break kind of thing. Yeah. And so he has 3 minutes to switch over and say hello to Ho Chi Minh. So Ho Chi Minh is sitting there waiting. They've been notified this plane is coming. You'll be hearing from these guys. They'll come in. You'll see them on your radar. Yeah. How will they see them on their radar screens? Well, there's multiple different ways that planes communicate with air traffic control, right? And I don't know if you want me to get into what they are, sure. But they, to make a long story short, 6 seconds after the plane passes Igari, it disappears from these radar screens. The equipment that was sending out these signals, and there's a bunch of them, they all go dark, and they are turned off somehow. And so what? And and so the time is going by, and Ho Chi Minh is like, I invited people to my party. Nobody's at my door yet. It's been 15 minutes. It's been half an hour. How long after the announced time of your party do you start to worry that it's been 2 hours and no one's at your party? Yeah. Eventually, you start calling your friends. Did you know I was having a party? Didn't you? And so eventually they start checking in. They start saying, hey, Kuala Lumpur, your guy was supposed to come this way, right? And Kuala Lumpur is like, yeah, they said goodbye to us. They're supposed to be there already. And so wait, maybe they thought for various reasons, they thought they'd maybe gone to Cambodia. Calls are going back and forth. And as time goes by, there's more and more worry. And it's kind of like, if someone that you're expecting a loved one to come home and they're not there, they're late, and you go from being like, oh, they're just late, and you get more and more worried. It becomes worry. And so by the time that this plane is supposed to land in Beijing, no one has seen hide nor hair of it. They're freaking out. And they start to send out ships and planes to look for. Now, what mostly happens when it's starting to look like a crash, right? And so when planes crash, when something goes wrong, mostly what happens is they go down and they're found within 5 miles of wherever the last contact was. You mentioned Air France 447 before.
Yeah.
It's a case similar in many respects. I doubt we'll have time to get into it, but that is something where they lost contact, and the wreckage ultimately was found within 5 miles of that last contact. So based on expectations of past incidents, probably this plane is in the South China Sea within 5 miles of that last point of contact. However, and this is looking like a very normal crash, very normal, tragic, sad, blessedly rare, but not unusual. But the next day, the story takes a major twist. And I mentioned this plane actually disappeared multiple times. Come to find, the Malaysian military looks at their radar data, and they see that actually this plane, when it went dark, it didn't crash. It turned 180, went back the way it had come, flew over the Malayan Peninsula and up the Malacca Strait, which is this body of water in between Thailand and Indonesia. Sort of empties out into the Andaman Sea, beyond which you get India. So it flies up the Malacca Straits, and then it vanishes again. That's the second vanishing. And they're like, oh, well, we better look there because, as I said, planes usually turn up to have crashed where you last saw them. Yeah. But so this had just left. It wasn't like it got turned off in the first case. In this case, it just left. It flew. It was flying actually quite fast. In fact, faster than planes usually travel. So whatever happened to this plane, it was now traveling faster than normal in this like weird, going off to the northwest. This is very, very strange. All of this part is very, very strange. And this is where we get a radical departure from expectations. We've never really seen anything like this before. And then it gets weirder. And this is the third vanishing, because some scientists at Inmarsat, which is a British satellite communications company, they've got a bunch of satellites around the world. One of them is parked over the Indian Ocean, 23,000 miles up, and it's stationary looking down at this part of the world. And it's taking in, it's basically receiving signals and transmitting, data from its customers on the ground, which are mostly ships and airplanes. And so they look at their database and they think, oh my God, we've actually got data from this thing for 6 more hours. So not only did this plane not crash, it went a long, long way. And then the signals blip out. They stop after 6 hours. And so that's the third vanishing. And so this is now fully weird. Like nothing like this has ever happened. And it really looks like somebody has taken this plane. And right away, right off the bat, who is going to take a plane? Well, you've got the captain and the co-pilot locked in the cockpit. They have the controls. Who else could do it? So right from the get-go, it looks like, I know you wanted to talk about the possibility that it was an accident, but 6 seconds after Gari, the plane goes dark, it does a 180, it accelerates. It's flying along actual airways, which are, defined by these navigational waypoints. So it looks like looks like deliberate action. It doesn't look like a ghost flight, which is what happens when like aircraft depressurizes and it just goes in a straight line until it runs out of fuel. It doesn't look like there's been an emergency, maybe the cockpit filled with smoke, or there was an emergency depressurization, because when that happens, you try to get down as quickly as possible. The first thing you do is put on your mask and then you go down. You don't go up and fast. You don't accelerate and fly over. But this plane flew over a major military base. So that's where it looked in the first couple of weeks after the disappearance.